Hey guys, what's up? Before I start this, and I don't think this is gonna be all that long, but before I start this, there's something that I want you guys to at least check out. I normally don't do things like this, but this person really could use the help. They really could use the help. Friend of mine who actually I was thinking of, we were hoping to do a little series on my channel, but didn't pan out. Mom really needs some help medically. They got some major medical bills, and the mother is not doing too well, and they need a little help getting the funds together to help her out with her medical issues. Um, Basically, I got a link in the description if you guys want to check it out. I've already contributed a little bit, I'm planning on contributing a little bit more. I know everybody these days is broke, so I can understand, but even if you just happen to share the link to somebody else, I would really appreciate it because I know they would definitely really appreciate it also. So, just check out the link because they could really use the help, and she does have something of a reward level for anybody who's willing to give a little something. So, but yeah, I normally don't like doing this type of stuff, but I really feel in this case it's a bit warranted. So anyway, despite the protests to the contrary, despite all the petitions that were sent in to the White House, the senators, the phone calls sent to the FCC, and all the noise that we've been generating, the FCC still voted to push forth the proposed rules that they have for net neutrality, which is effectively going to kill it, despite them claiming the contrary. Our good friend Tom Wheeler is claiming that no, these new rules are going to, they're going to protect net neutrality, but at the same time, it's going to, it's going to allow, the service providers to have more flexibility. Bullshit. It's just another money grab, and we know it. And I can't say I'm surprised that they voted for it. This was a well done, long planned inside job. Can't tell me that you get a former lobbyist for these telecommunications companies to end up being the chairman of the FCC, and then later on they come up with a set of rules like this. I put some links in the description so you guys can get an idea of what these new rules will basically do to the internet once they're fully put into effect. Sorry, messing up words here. And again, I can't really say I'm surprised by this. We basically have 4 months before everything's shot to hell. 4 months. I'm not so much of a pessimist as to say that, fuck these 4 months because they're just going to do whatever the hell they want to do, even though I do kind of feel that way. But at the same time, I don't think that you should just give this up without a fight. It's really time to start, flooding the phone lines. It's really time to start coming up with some interesting ways to catch these people's attention. But it's going to be a tough battle. The fact that we made all this noise and they're still like, oh, we're voting for this anyway, is pretty much a sign that they really don't give a fuck about you, and they're just going to cave into their corporate masters so that they can get a little bit more money out of us. There was something that was said about this whole net neutrality crap that really gets on my nerves, and I really think it bears touching on. I don't have time for me to go into a full angry rant on all this because there's so much to this that I could rant about that's probably going to make this like an hour freaking long. And I don't have that time. But there's one thing that I just felt insulted my intelligence. And it was this statement by Verizon on net neutrality. This came out after they had voted to push forth these new rules of theirs. They put out a statement which basically stated, if we treated the internet as a public utility, which it should be seen that way. So many other countries understood that you're supposed to treat it that way for obvious reasons. But they don't want to treat it as a public utility because then they'd be able to charge whatever the fuck they want for the crappy service they give us. Verizon basically said that if we treated this like a public utility and had regulations on that, they said it would, quote, lead to years of legal and regulatory uncertainty and would jeopardize investment and innovation in broadband, unquote. This statement pisses me off to no end for a couple of reasons, several. One is that thing about innovation in broadband. I've been online for a long time. I've been around since, the internet was first starting to get used, back in the days of dial-up and, message boards and, you know, the old freaking days. And the only real innovation I have seen is moving from, say, dial-up to DSL to cable. And that's about it. The improvements that we should have already seen are not really here yet. We gave these fuckers, these particular communications companies, millions of dollars in tax money for them to improve, the communications wiring and stuff that we had in this country. We're supposed to be having fiber optics everywhere. And there's so many places in this country that don't really have real access to the internet that were supposed to have already been covered. This was back in the 1990s that they had been given this freaking cash. Have yet to see it implemented, but these guys have just ran off with the money anyway. Where's the super duper innovation that we're supposed to be getting? Another thing that gets me is that if you want innovation, you need to do it by having tons of these companies competing against one another. Because if they're competing against one another, they're going to keep trying to one-up themselves in terms of services. But when you only have just a few companies offering internet service, and depending on what region of the country you happen to live in, if you only have access to maybe one or two, and one of them clearly isn't up to snuff, then what kind of competition do you possibly have? I'm speaking from experience here, because where I'm living right now, I really only have one freaking choice if I want decent internet speed. That's Comcast. That's it. That's pretty much it. Satellite? No. Really? No. You want to talk about innovation? I would love to see some real innovation where satellite internet service actually can stand up to, say, cable style broadband. It's not up there yet, last time I checked. And they're not exactly doing what I think it takes to, improve the service, whether in satellite or in cable. Hell, people with cable still have the problem of if everyone else around them happens to have cable internet, and quite frankly, in my area, that's pretty much what you tend to see. Unless you're willing to spend less for less, less in terms of speeds and upload and download, services. If you got everybody else on that same service, it kind of slows your pipelines down. There have been many times during the day where, some times during the day, speeds are fast. Then other times during the day, it's slow to a crawl. And me and my wife, none of us are downloading anything. We're not playing anything online. We're not streaming anything. So we don't see why it's suddenly slow to a freaking crawl. But it happens. And this is a common thing. This has been going on for years now. This is anyone who's gotten broadband knows about this. You'd think that if they're going to be talking about innovation, they would have been able to take care of that by now. They haven't. I mean, I'm pretty sure somebody out there who is a bit more learned than me in this particular subject will be able to tell me why this is. I'm pretty sure there's a really good logical reason why this is going on, but I haven't heard it yet, and I haven't really seen a decent argument for it. Somebody might be able to, educate me on this. Possibly. It would be great. That would help ease my anger a little bit when hearing about this innovation, but whatever. But that's just a small thing. The thing that really gets me is when they say this is going to jeopardize investment. These guys are already getting subsidies for the services they give. What more investment do they need when they have our tax dollars to help them to not only give us the services where they can gouge our speeds, which has been proven that they gouge our speeds. I forgot there was a particular company that just straight out said that, yeah, they artificially fuck your speeds up just so they can get some more money out of you. We're paying them for that service, and they want more investment. What they're really basically saying is, look, if you guys don't push these particular rules in effect so that we can gouge more money off of you, then the other thieves who we want money from aren't going to open up their pocketbooks to get in on the scam either. That's what that statement means. Whenever you hear something about we're jeopardizing investment, they're basically saying there's a whole bunch of other freaking crooks who want to get in on this. You don't put this in, they're not going to divvy up the money, and then all of a sudden more rich guys can't get richer. That's freaking what it means. When they can just outright tell you that, that's when you know shit is they don't care anymore. I mean, granted, if they used even clearer language, if they just said it exactly the way I said it, maybe that'll wake more people up. But it doesn't take much thinking about that line to realize that's what they're saying. And again, I just used the keyword think, which a lot of people don't do, so that line just go right over their head. You say this to the average person, well, yeah, investment is good. The word investment is good, so that means we don't want to jeopardize investment. Yeah, it's just basically just saying, look, we don't want to fuck. And then the other thing is when they're saying innovation, look at the rules. I put the links in the description so you can see exactly what these rules entail. When you read them, keep that thing in mind. What do these rules have to do with innovating things in broadband? The way they set it up, it's more set up so that you have to pay to win. What kind of, innovation is that? Basically, as long as you have enough money to pay these companies to have your net services fast enough to show up on the net, as long as you're willing to pay them to be in the fast lane, you're golden. If you don't have enough money, tough luck. What is that innovating? A better way to put money in their pockets? Maybe that, but as far as innovating for everybody else, doesn't exactly work. And as many people have pointed out, if these rules were in effect years ago, things like YouTube, Facebook, Reddit, these particular things online wouldn't fucking exist because as startups, they don't have the money to be able to pay to play. Not to mention that another one of the clauses that they put in there to try to prove that, certain prices and fees that they're giving to these companies trying to start their businesses online, they have to try to prove that these fees are unfair. The amount of expert lawyers and testimony and shit that they're going to have to do to go up against these mega companies, they're not going to be able to afford that. This is just making sure that monopolies happen to get bigger, making sure that the bigger companies will be able to survive while the small ones can't. There's no innovation in that. You only get innovation when there's many people on the board who are able to compete with other groups. We've seen innovations online and many different online services simply because they were free to show how good and superior their service was. People were able to move off of MySpace onto something like Facebook because people were free to put these things out to see how it worked. When you set it up so that only the bigger companies are able to do things, there is no longer any innovation. Things stagnate. Things just get stifled, which is what we're seeing right now in this country in so many different fields in the markets. Once the bigger companies get where they're at, they always set it up so that the smaller ones can't freaking survive. The same thing is happening online right now. And they got their crony in the FCC to set that shit up. And they can get away with it because not enough people are realizing that it's these companies that you have to deal with. You have to combat them. Yelling at the government is one thing. Yes, we can yell at the government for letting these things through, but they're doing it for a reason. It's because they're getting the money and they're getting the influence from these bigger companies. So you have to go after the companies. They're the ones manipulating government. You have to be able to take back your government and manipulate them yourselves with the people you vote in. With the way you constantly keep track of the people you vote in. Write them, call them, get their attention. We put you in there, we can take you out, and then follow through on that. When it comes campaign time, don't suddenly let this stupid freaking campaign ads sway you into forgetting what they did to you while they were in office. Get rid of these assholes and put in somebody else who actually has your interests at heart. You got to follow through. When you're in a republic, you kind of have a responsibility to help maintain it. You don't just simply vote people in and then forget about it. That's another rant for another time. Basically, we have until September. We have until September to try to reverse the shit that's coming down the pipeline. Thankfully, there are tons of people who are already on board with this. There are several companies who are going against this. And yeah, they're big companies. I got problems with big companies, but even that's one thing that kind of cracks me up. This one group of big companies, since they're trying to screw a whole lot of people over, they're also screwing over other bigger companies. And they're like, you're not going to fuck with my money. So now they're trying to fight back. Netflix, Amazon, the rest of them, they're like, no, fuck this, no. So it's interesting, this back and forth going on. We'll see who happens to win this. But of course, you got consumer rights advocates fighting against this. You got individual people like, just me who's just like, oh, hell no, I already got crappy service. And now you're trying to make me pay to get something halfway decent? No. We got 4 months. It's time to make a whole lot of noise before September 10th hits. It was September 10th, right? I believe it was September 10th. I could be wrong. Yeah, September 10th. We have until then. If you haven't been petitioning people, if you haven't been, writing to the White House, if you haven't been writing to your senator, now is the time. The FCC just opened up saying, oh, we would like to see what the public thinks about these rules. You already knew what we thought about it before you decided to vote for the freaking thing. Fuck you. But still, no, they're going to give us a process to talk to them now, because that's the thing. People flooded them so much they had to say, stop calling us, because we were flooding their phone lines. That should have been a clue to these assholes, but whatever. They already had their plans in place. They knew they didn't care. But now they got their new electronic comment filing system, so flood that shit. But when you're writing your opinion on these rules, the one thing I ask, when we're making all this noise and we're writing these positions and we're writing the senators and we're, writing in this electronic comment filing system, when you are saying why you don't like these rules, make your reasons logical and rational. Don't just simply write a whole bunch of "fuck you, motherfuckers," because then we'll just simply look like a bunch of idiots, and they could just write us off as, look at the type of shit that they're sending. There's no reason for us to consider it. You gotta basically show how their rules make no sense, point by point. Even if it doesn't have to be this really long freaking diatribe, but you gotta if it has to be concise, make it concise. People like concise, but make sure it makes sense. Point out why this rule wouldn't make any sense. Point out how it's going to end up, stifling innovation instead of encouraging it. Show how it favors monopolies instead of a bunch of different, startups and companies being able to compete against one another, making it a true freer market. These are the type of things you need to talk about. Talk about the fact that this should be a freaking public utility, because, quite frankly, our society these days needs it's like we are now dependent on the internet and quick access to information. It is a freaking public utility, whether these small, these freaking money-grubbing companies like it or not. And they need to be held accountable for how they've been abusing it and abusing the way they give us that service. We need to talk about that, and we need to present that argument in a clear fashion that everyone can understand. So that, when September 10th rolls around, they decide to vote against what we want anyway, then it should be clear at that point. It's already clear to me. I mean, it should already be clear to everyone else, but it's definitely clear that, yeah, you gave you showed how it's stifling things, and they were like, yeah, well, fuck you, we just want to make money off your backs also. And then hopefully you'll respond accordingly. But yeah, we got 4 months. 4 months to try to stop the net in the U.S. from being fucked over as we know it. Got a lot of work to do. Let's get to it. That's all I gotta say on that. Really wish this video could be a little bit cheerier, but I'm not all that happy. I'll make up for it with a Dark Souls video coming up later. Catch you guys later.